Hi friends, welcome to the NPTEL course Leadership for India Inc. Practical Concepts and Constructs. We are in week 10 discussing transformational leadership models part 2. In this lecture we will focus on dependence independence model. What makes organizations supremely effective? This is a question that experts in organizational behavior and strategic management have been grappling with in terms of multiple answers with less than optimal solutions. We have traced several of the management thought process that governed management and leadership over the last several decades. Principally, we had four schools: scientific management school, human relations school, organizational behavioral school, and strategic management school. Most theories focus essentially on strong bonding between leaders and followers, amongst followers, within teams, and between teams across organizations. We also focus on vision, strategy, and execution as a binding triad. However, over the last few years, there has been significant automation that has occurred. The next 2 decades will be the age of artificial intelligence, which is expected to replace human thinking and human action in several aspects of our organizational as well as personal life. Post COVID, dispersed and isolated but digitally connected workplace seems to have come through, and for that, either the home or anywhere else are the hubs. The new norm is expected to reduce the human touch in organizational interactions. These trends raise some questions if organizations will be dehumanized and depersonalized. However, there are a couple of things we must note. Just as machines cannot replace people, despite enormous strides in robotics and machine learning, because people are required to design, make, and deploy such people replacing machines. Processes also cannot replace people because people are required to prescribe, understand, and implement processes. Only the organizations will see a shift between the nature of work from mechanical to electronic, from electronic to digital, and from human thinking to artificial thinking. Yet, the human mind and human action would still be required in different areas of work compared to the previous areas of work. As organizations and corporations are made up of several hundreds and even several thousands of people, understanding and people dynamics will continue to be the foundation of organizational effectiveness. Therefore, we must still continue our inquiry into what bonds people together, what bonds teams together, and what bonds organizations as a whole. People can be understood through multiple attributes, but the essential enigma is that every person experiences all through his or her life the very fundamental human paradox of wanting to be independent and dependent simultaneously. We briefly touched upon this concept in one of our earlier lectures. From the time a baby is born, the paradox of dependence and independence, whether it's called dependent independence or independent dependence, becomes explicit. With age, education, and experience, the paradox only increases manifold. It becomes more complex because additional attributes and emotions get embedded in human and organizational behavior. Organizational effectiveness can be defined through 5 fundamental human dimensions: loyalty, objectivity, faith, trust, and integrity. These simple terms, which have complex ramifications, are essential for understanding what makes humans and teams bond together. This I call the lofty model of organizational effectiveness. If the earlier lectures have focused on the mutual dependence of leaders and followers to build effective organizational teams in terms of leaders enabling the followers to get into leadership positions and the followers stepping up to move into leadership positions, in this lecture we will consider the key role of leaders in aligning organizations for shared vision, strategy, and execution through team bonding. We now consider the characteristic human dependence versus independence. Leaders and followers, as human beings, are subject to a paradox of independent dependence or dependent independence. Leaders can make themselves and their organizations supremely successful. It comprises loyalty, objectivity, faith, trust, and integrity. Each of these 5 factors is mutually reinforcing. Together, they represent the best competitive advantage an organization could ever have. Mahatma Gandhi, the father of India's independence, is an unparalleled example of how the lofty model can help leaders and organizations surpass all hurdles and deliver outstanding success. The whole gamut of effective delivery by teams and organizations has become an increasingly complex mosaic that is increasingly fascinating but tantalizingly imperfect. The reasons for the complex information are rather simple in their character. Let me first talk about the lofty model of dependence independence. It comprises five factors, as I said. Loyalty has to be to the multiple parameters of an organization's functioning and not necessarily only to the leader. Objectivity must be data based, unbiased, logical, and rational views. Faith must be there in every individual, in oneself, and also in the leader's ability to deliver and make the organization deliver. There must be trust based on the sincerity, honesty, and reliability of the leader. There must be integrity that is reflected by the leader and that permeates throughout the organization. Loyalty should not be to the individual, but it must be to the causes which the organization represents. Objectivity must not be based on biases or prior thoughts, it must be based on data, and it should be unbiased, logical, and rational. Faith should be there in oneself and in the leader as well as in the organization. Trust must be based on sincerity, honesty, and reliability, and integrity must be reflected by the leader and must be present throughout the organization. The reality of loyalty. From the days of royalty, loyalty has been the core of leadership expectations and people behavior. Loyalty is defined as being supportive of and attached to a person or issue. The typical king and loyal subjects relationship exemplifies. A good king became a great king when the king also felt loyal towards his subjects and reciprocated their loyalty in thought and deed. So, loyalty is not a one way street from the followers to the leader. It is also a two-way street, including the leader being loyal to the followers. As modern organizations took shape with greater number of factors impacting the organization performance, loyalty has taken multiple hues besides loyalty to the leader. There is loyalty to ideology, loyalty to goals, nation, society, and values, for example. Loyalty, in fact, is the fundamental factor that promotes a shared concern or an alignment between two or more individuals as a partnership, team, or organization. Loyalty leads to a sense of belonging and ownership. On the flip side, loyalty also leads to adulation and subordination of logic to adulation. And at its worst, loyalty can degenerate into sycophancy. A leader needs to be cognizant of his responsibility to avoid the negative aspects of loyalty and facilitate its positive aspects in organizational dynamics. Many times, loyalty can be misused not only by the followers but also by the leader, sometimes consciously and many times unconsciously. Loyalty rarely stays constant and consistent as individuals and societies as well as businesses and companies evolve. Loyalty gets positively influenced and modified by objectivity, as we see later. What are the facets of genuine loyalty? There are multiple features. At the same time, loyalty that is misplaced can weaken the organization. Genuine loyalty helps the team stay together and meet challenges as one team. It strengthens the will and hands of the leader, builds roots for a long term career in the company. However, misplaced loyalty leads to blind obedience and abject servility. It is the responsibility of both the leader and follower groups to facilitate genuine loyalty and discourage blind loyalty so that the organization benefits rather than suffers from loyalty. Let me compare genuine versus misplaced loyalty. These are all simple terms and terms which we use and hear in a common manner. However, it is very important to understand the underlying concepts, understand the underlying drivers, and make sure that we use those terms in our behavioral patterns. We use those behavioral patterns themselves in a proper manner. So, an individual with genuine loyalty is compared with an individual with misplaced loyalty in this table. The former is more balanced, more focused on the company and the cause rather than on the boss. The individual is with misplaced loyalty, in contrast, is skewed. He is more focused on the boss rather than the company or the cause. The former builds bonds not only with the superiors but also with the peers and subordinates, whereas the individual with misplaced loyalty divides the team vertically as boss follower versus others. The genuinely loyal individual develops roots with the company. Individuals stay on even if leaders change. Develops roots with only the boss, and such individuals with misplaced loyalty move with the leaders. The individual with genuine loyalty acts as the confidant and alter ego of the leader, but in a positive sense. An individual with misplaced loyalty acts as an extra constitutional authority in the team. The genuinely loyal person tends to be self directed. When required, will not hesitate to advise the leader objectively. The individual with misplaced loyalty tends to lack initiative, looks for directives from the leader. The former serves as a positive role model for the organization, whereas the latter strikes as a negative role model. Being loyal is a human behavioral tendency as much as seeking loyalty is. It requires objectivity on the part of both the leader and the follower to identify and nurture genuine loyalty. Loyalty is elusive but is real. It's very difficult to define loyalty in any quantitative term or even in a reflective term. It is reliable, real, and tangible, however. The difficulty of description relates to loyalty being multidimensional, and explicit responses are not the real descriptors. Loyalty has multiple dimensions in terms of the following five factors. 1. Leader. Leader represents what the company stands for. Leader, by visibility as well as by communication, influences the employees. Hence, individuals tend to have loyalty to the leader. Individuals also tend to have loyalty to the organization because organization is the second home for any employee, including the leader. Individuals tend to have loyalty to goals because goals represent the visible commitment of what the company will do for all its stakeholders. Hence, loyalty to the goals. Values constitute the non-negotiable foundations of a company. Values reflect on everything a company does. Hence, positive individuals have loyalty to the values. And there could also be specific causes for which a company stands. More often than not, there will be a cause underlying each activity. The cause is a combination of goals and values expressed with the leader's style, hence loyalty to the values. Every member of an organization must understand the true import of loyalty and the multiple dimensions on which it can get expressed and experienced as above. Let's look for objectivity. Objectivity is helpful for selectivity. Objectivity is the ability to take an unbiased view based on data, evidence, logic, rationality, and reasoning. It is the faculty of an educated and experienced human being. It tests one's inescapable biases against the inputs that arise from facts and figures of processes and outcomes. All of these things are analyzed with logic, rationality, and reasoning. Objectivity is at the core of positive shifts in loyalties that occur in organizations, marketplaces, and societies. A customer may be loyal to a brand, but when the customer faces actual data based on the performance of the products or the word of mouth or the critical reviews by analysts, the loyalty could change. Therefore, objectivity is at the core of positive shifts in loyalties that occur in organizations, marketplaces, and societies. Lack of objectivity leads to negative aspects of loyalty overwhelming the positive ones. Objectivity needs to be embedded in business process. Mere analysis is not going to lead to objectivity. Analysis is only one step of the process of arriving at objective decisions or objective analysis. It ensures objective decision making, ensures process optimality if we understand the way objectivity has to be carried out. Objectivity need not always be based on proven processes or established results. It can also be embedded in thinking and planning process. It requires elimination of biases and legacy influences. Companies that are loyal to motorcycles, for example, may change their views to also bet on scooters or vice versa, based on an objective analysis of consumer preferences. Similarly, long-standing brand loyalty can be changed by objective analysis that arises from the factors of objectivity related to product features and performance. Negative performance of products, people, or businesses can lead to an objective re-evaluation of the established loyalty considerations and trigger shifts in allegiance based on hypothesis with reference to the future. In political campaigns or corporate strategies, more often than not, objectivity and expectations act together rather than solely as either objectivity or expectation. Both are required. First, expectations come in, then objectivity comes in to analyze the right path to be taken. The features of objectivity are as follows. 1. Freedom from bias and favoritism. Consideration of both pros and cons, taking into account the views of all concerned and taking into account all the data points which are relevant. It extends not only to qualitative information but also to abstract future as well. But there are certain overhangs of objectivity also. We may try to go on drilling for unavailable data. There could be elasticity of timelines, and there could also be paralysis by analysis while trying to be objective to the core, which is probably not feasible. Being objective is often considered to be the preserve of knowledge-seeking intellectual. However, it could be for the uninitiated as well, so long as one is willing to deploy common sense. Objectivity could very well come with common sense. What is the difference between objectivity and subjectivity? Let's take the example of an objective individual and compare him or her with a subjective individual. Objective individual is influenced by logic, data, and information that has credibility. Not any logic, any data or information. That set of logic, data, and information must have credibility. Whereas a subjective individual is influenced by personal feelings, opinions, tastes, and experiences. Objective individual relies on multiple data points before making a decision, whereas a subjective individual relies on the most influential viewpoints. That is, he gets biased. Objective individual is inclusive and deliberative in decision making. Subjective individual tends to be personalized and impulsive in decision making. Objective individual is accountable to views, decisions, and outcomes, makes qualitative and perception based decision making. That is subjective individual for you. Objective individual has both strategic and tactical approaches in his functioning, whereas a subjective individual is more tactical in approach. Objective individual, like a genuine loyalty individual, serves as a positive role model, whereas a subjective individual, like a blind loyalty individual, strikes as an opportunistic role model. Being objective is a more involved development of the human behavior of making decisions based on inputs. Objectivity has become a management science of its own standing. Being both loyal and objective develops faith. Let's consider what faith is at a later stage. But before that, objectivity is tangible but elusive. I said that loyalty is a bit elusive to define, but it's real. Here we say objectivity is very tangible but elusive to really have it as the ultimate level of objectivity. It can be defined but actually could be less than tangible. This is because objectivity gets clouded by quantitative factors rather than by qualitative factors. This arises from the data-oriented approach of objectivity. First, depth of information. Data has no limits. It is always possible to seek deeply placed data in an elusive quest for objectivity. At the other end, the first data received could be wrong, and sans further seek out, erroneous judgment of outcome could result. So we could go wrong even having surfeit of data. Second, breadth of information. Data could also be without boundaries. One may seek significant collateral data from related and unrelated areas, leading to elusive quest again. At the other end, not looking at such data points could lead to incorrect evaluations. Constituents at play. The more players at play could also mean that objectivity could be influenced by multiple viewpoints. Hierarchy, formal and informal exercise of power could influence objectivity. And the issues under discussion themselves could impact analysis of objectivity. Issues that look frivolous may have deep import, while seemingly complex issues could have simple facts at the core. Objectivity may be affected significantly if the issues are not properly understood. Consequences of analysis of outcome. People who need to be objective may allow subjectivity to seep in based on the perceived impact of the evaluation outcome. What would happen if my objective analysis says that the leader's decision is wrong? So people think about the consequence of pronouncing their objective judgment rather than the necessity of pronouncing the objective judgment. That is the issue. It is always advisable to understand the issue appropriately, seek only relevant information, and make evaluation without fear or favor of either the people, the processes, or the outcomes. I said that loyalty together with objectivity makes for faith, and faith is the foundation of human relationships of positive nature. Faith is one's belief in a person's ability or knowledge. It is also a belief that a leader, mission, strategy, ideology, or organization would deliver. Despite or arising from loyalty and despite benefiting from objectivity, one could develop faith. That is, loyalty and objective could together lead to faith, or without really having loyalty or without having objectivity, one could still develop faith. Faith in technology makes engineers and scientists develop products that consistently outperform an existing generation of products. Faith in political leaders enables people to vote for them in democratic elections. While loyalty oneself could be negative and needs to be discouraged, faith in oneself is positive and needs to be encouraged. Faith that comes from knowledge and ability drives positive change in organizations and nations. Faith becomes stronger as the human traits of skepticism and cynicism are dispelled by education and experience on one hand and logic and reason on the other. If you have genuine loyalty and if that is fortified by positive objectivity, you would have faith. Faith in the capabilities and aspirations of people of a nation motivate leaders to aim at developing economies into super economies, a transformation that is evident in the resurgent aspirations of India and its leadership. What are the features of faith? Faith is often seen as a matter of personal belief. However, faith in the business context is a perception that establishes and strengthens business relationships internally within a firm and externally with all its stakeholders. Faith is therefore a reliance on something or someone despite lack of complete evidence. Willingness to experiment with that something or someone on the basis of such reliance. Possibility of reassessing based on accumulation of data. Today's subject of faith need not be tomorrow's subject of faith. Let's take the example of a new pharmaceutical drug. A new drug can never be tested universally, that is, on all the patients, nor can it be tested on a patient who is exactly identical to the patient to whom it is proposed to be administered over a 10-year or 20-year period. It is impossible. It can only be validated on a partial scale, limited human trials relative to the huge patient universe. Faith generated by approving regulatory agency, prescribing doctor and manufacturer of medicine is the one which underscores the prescription of the drug as well as the consumption of the drug. Patient is willing to take the medicine based on the faith that the medicine will work due to the above. Faith is based on a past track record and available information. Faith is not based on any guarantees, but at the same time it needs a structure, process and person to validate information that forms the basis of faith. In an earlier lecture, I said that the pharmaceutical product is probably the only product which is taken on faith. The faith that it has been designed and developed and manufactured appropriately, a faith that it has been tested, clinically validated and approved with rigor, and the faith that the doctor knows which body types, which disease types will require which type of medicine. It is the only product which cannot be physically seen in terms of its features or actions. Therefore, faith is an important aspect of human life, and it is more applicable for certain circumstances and certain individuals and certain happenings relative to others. There is faith as also there is blind faith, just as there is genuine loyalty and there is blind loyalty. Again, as with the other factors, faith cannot be allowed to degenerate into blind faith. While faith may show a positive path forward based on some evidence and analysis, blind faith may lead to a negative path as the individual is unable to recognize or is willing to override evidence. Let's compare faith and blind faith. Faith is based on partial positive evidence. Blind faith ignores even negative evidence. Positive faith supports many positive traits such as commitment, dedication, and passion. Blind faith triggers many negative traits such as obduracy and rigidity. Faith is personalized but often shared with others. Blind faith is also personalized but highly demonstrative. You would like to wear your faith on your shoulder. Does not get easily shaken but open to reassessment. That is proper faith for you. Blind faith is not open to feedback or course correction. Faith is relational in approach, whereas blind faith even more highly relational in approach. Faith supports a positive role model. Blind faith strikes as a non-evidence based negative model. Having faith in the components of one's ecosystem is fundamental to a stable and positive approach to work. As faith is open to evidence on expectations and outcomes, faith supports the factors of loyalty and objectivity. Faith is circumscribed by the boundaries of belief. Faith tends to be an accumulation of knowledge and experience that an individual gains. Faith varies based on a number of factors, not merely confined to these two factors. Knowledge, experience, personal belief, others' beliefs, and outcomes are some of the factors. Knowledge sets the bounds for rationality for faith. Knowledge could be about persons, events, expectations, and anything else. It sets the foundation for faith. Experience reinforces or weakens the foundation of faith. The individual must have the objectivity to assess, free of bias, all the five enablers of faith. Personal belief. Individuals are bound to have personal beliefs. While objectivity corrects or eliminates bias, that bias would inherently exist in every individual. It cannot be denied. Objectivity is the key. Others' beliefs. While individuals with objectivity can certainly overcome their individual bias, other people's bias does influence the level of faith. And finally, outcomes. The outcomes of leadership and individual actions serve to reinforce or shake the faith one has. While faith as a concept requires consistent and durable presence, blind faith is clearly undesirable. Studies of corporate governance have established that blind faith has been at the core of the distortion that were executed willfully. That is, people have blind faith that the leader is supreme and whatever the leader is doing is the right thing. Therefore, several acts of corporate misgovernance were knowingly or unknowingly committed by people who had blind faith on the leaders. Therefore, faith has to be objectively developed and objectively relied upon. Trust and teams. Trust develops with experience of proven outcomes. Trust develops with credibility. Constitution of a team in terms of its members and the leader needs to be based on trust rather than expediency. Trust-based teams and organizations bond better and they deliver better. Trust that is based on genuine loyalty, clear objectivity, and proven faith becomes unshakable. Trust is the glue that holds individuals in teams and teams in organizations together. Loyalty, objectivity, faith, and trust. We have covered four factors which are extremely important in building a team that is strong. Trust is based on ability, reinforced by performance, and underscored by reliability. When an organization operates in a culture of trust, the leader understands that he or she is placed in a position of trust, and the team members as well as the leaders in the broader organization trust each other. That is how trust works with the teams and within the teams. Trust is very difficult to build but very easy to destroy. It is the team strength that is the most difficult to build and the easiest thing to destroy. Leaders need to trust the followers as much as the followers need to trust the leader. They must understand how trust is a complex alchemy of visible performance and invisible emotion. We should have clarity. Who the stakeholders are must be clearly known. We should know the platform, that is, the platform interactions for assessing trust. Openness, there should be openness in discussions and evaluations. Trust gets developed when successes and failures are both equally analyzed and both objectively analyzed. Agendas must be clear, open, and transparent. Informality in formal channels helps fluidity and acceptance. The emotional component of trust can be handled with people-oriented leadership that focuses on the softer side of human interactions. The previously discussed alignment, influencing, and directing model goes well with the building of trust. Trust is almost a brand for a person as well as for a company. It may be seen to be a person-specific concept, for example, a trusted lieutenant and a trustworthy person. But trust is also like a brand that stays with the person, that is built through assiduous work. Some characteristics. Trust is portable. An individual or leader trusted in one environment could be seen as trustworthy even when moved to another environment until evidence mounts to the contrary. Trust is collective. Sometimes a group of individuals enjoy greater trust than each of them individually. That is, they work, they coalesce, and they perform better as a team. And people have greater trust in the team as a whole than on individuals of the team separately. This explains why a group of executives moves together and or is welcomed with greater trust. Divisible. Taking off from the earlier 2 points, when individuals move out of a trusted team, the level of trust may decrease, stay the same, or in some cases even increase. Trust is inherited. Trust is also inherited from the larger organization or the corporation, almost like corporate brand rubbing off on the individual product brand. For example, a banker operating in a systems driven bank evokes greater trust. Trust is emotive. While trust is built through a number of quantitative measures, it is also built through continuous relational assurance between individuals. Trust is an extremely important component of leader-member, leader-leader, and member-member interactions in an organization. Trust is the bond that cements a team together for effective organizational performance. In fact, trust underscores every decision we take in the ultimate analysis. The trust may be based on proper analysis of the loyalty, objectivity, and faith factors, or probably could be lacking. But trust, as understood by an individual, is the basic pivot for decision making by an individual, and so is it for a corporation. That's why there is great importance for the concept of trust to be highly refined in an individual or in an organization and explored and utilized to the maximum. Integrity, that's the core. Integrity is the quality of being honest and having moral and ethical principles. Integrity in leaders is essential to build value-based ethical organizations that conduct their businesses by ethical means. In a materialistic world, firms dedicated to integrity may appear to move or grow slower, but would surely last longer and even perpetually. A leader who is cognizant of his responsibility on integrity would put in place robust business processes, would also establish a strong department of ethics and compliance in the organization with a senior leader at the helm. He would also support board level mechanisms such as audit committee function effectively. Business growth with code of conduct will lead to business with integrity. A leader's integrity permeates the entire organization and reinforces the 4 parameters of loyalty, objectivity, faith, and trust discussed earlier. Integrity is the greatest strength a leader and a firm must possess forever. Integrity and ethics are closely allied as concepts to the extent of being almost the same. Ethics, some view, constitute a broader framework of external principles and values which are given an internal expression as a code of integrity by which the organization and its individual must function. An ethical compass is an inviolable guide. I have taken a view in this course elsewhere that ethics is even broader than integrity. It sets standards beyond what a company would put in place as a code of conduct or a code of integrity. So integrity and ethics should be seen together, one reinforcing the other. Integrity and ethics could be operational in human relations, business transactions, wealth generation and distribution, organizational accountability, environment safety and health responsibility, follower and leader behavior. So if you have an ethical compass in an organization and it is buttressed by a code of conduct at the operational level, you have gold standard organizations in terms of ethics and integrity. It is important for an organization to lay down the principles of ethics and integrity in a highly visible manner and insist on compliance by all employees and stakeholders unequivocally. Integrity is inviolable. Integrity, though often seen from a financial prism, may actually be experienced in any of the activities that occur in the organization, in any of the functional domains. Some, not all examples are summarized below. Financial, of course, is the first touch point or even the concluding touch point of integrity. Financial operations and results represent the final translation of the bona fide or malafide transactions. Some malafide transactions may be concealed and need to be uncovered with appropriate audit and even forensic expertise. Operations. While operational malfeasance is detected as above, careless and callous operations are also similar to lack of integrity. It is tantamount to lack of professional integrity in operations. Quality is another aspect of integrity. The vigilance on quality is one of the most important aspects of integrity. A leader or a follower who is derelict of his or her responsibility towards quality clearly reflects lack of integrity. If you don't have top quality in your organization, if you pass components that do not meet standards, you are not having the highest level of integrity. And it could even boomerang at some point of time with products coming back and the organization having to pay very high price for that recall. Then we have environment, safety and health. More than anything else, compliance to ESG practices must be the behavioral underpinning of every individual leader. Floating of ESG standards by any individual or leader and or leader's inability or diffidence with respect to ESG is tantamount to flouting of integrity. While integrity is expressed through many aspects, only a few of which could be considered here, the only way integrity becomes supreme is by embedding it in the professional DNA of the company, the leader, and the individuals. Defining integrity, articulating integrity, and embedding it in the DNA of the company, individuals, and the leader is the most profound leadership responsibility. The best rule book is Leading by Integrity. Leading by integrity would require understanding and assimilating the best practices of ethics and compliance and integrating them in the company's rule book. Corporate governance and ethical behavior are closely related. Exemplar leadership includes and covers corporate governance, code of business conduct, ethics and compliance, audit and accountability. Board of directors at the very top, the executive organization, including the CEO and the CXOs, must work together to have appropriate checks and balances to make sure that the rule book is functioning the way it must. Ensuring ethical integrity requires continued vigilance. Whether a company is task oriented or people oriented in extremes or a hybrid, a tight system of corporate and business governance is mandatory. So let's look at the Lofty model. Lofty model, as I said, covers loyalty, objectivity, faith, trust, and integrity. Leaders and their organizations need to understand the human dynamics that determine an organization's effectiveness. The history of successful leaders teaches us that even under debilitating circumstances marked by heterogeneity and exploitation, the Lofty model can deliver results. Otherwise, Mahatma Gandhi would not have been able to take India's independence movement to its logical conclusion. Through his leadership, which was nothing but loyalty, objectivity, faith, trust, and integrity model, that he could transcend all hurdles and deliver success. His preaching and leadership reinforced loyalty of the people to Bharat Mata, Mother India, and to the spirit of independence, overriding all vociferous tendencies and efforts. Although there were somewhat more aggressive and ambitious leadership models seeking independence, people were objective in determining who could be and who would be the real and enduring father of the nation, Jatipita. What were the visible factors of the Lofty model of Mahatma Gandhi? Simple and humble life, working for and with people, non-violence movement, fasting for causes, forsaking of foreign goods. The many sacrifices and struggles led by Mahatma Gandhi reinforced trust in every individual Indian that the entire Indian population is prepared for sacrifices that would obtain for the nation her independence. Above all, his unmatched integrity in all his thoughts, expressions, and deeds made Mahatma Gandhi a leader beyond compare. Another aspect of the Lofty model: leaders who walk the talk and make personal sacrifices in furtherance of the cause they espouse are spontaneously and universally recognized as leaders who can be trusted to lead. Mahatma Gandhi exemplified the Lofty model of leadership. The people developed faith on Mahatma Gandhi not just because of his being the leader of independence movement, but they developed faith on themselves as well. They felt that they are capable of being the integral part of his independence movement. Individual and community responses to Mahatma's calls, be it in the form of non-violent marches, fasts, salt satyagraha, forsaking of foreign goods, or Khadi movement, reinforced trust. Despite lack of modern methods of communication, millions of population across the vast country could perceive and follow Mahatma Gandhi as their trusted leader. So how did it happen? Because of the faith in the leader. They could see the integrity in action, and that developed trust in the leader. Mahatma Gandhi's trust in his people and his methods of peace and harmony were objectively visible. The entire Indian population was spontaneously prepared for sacrifices that would obtain national independence. So there was a two-way trust from Mahatma Gandhi onto the Indian people and from the Indian population towards Mahatma Gandhi. That's the lofty model in functioning. At a micro level in organizations, the lofty model presents a winning combination of the five simple emotions that are universally present in all individuals. That is, a person would like to be loyal, a person would like to be objective, he wants to be strengthened by having faith, he wants to trust others and be trusted, he wants to be a man or a person of integrity. So these are all the basic good emotions of an individual. The lofty model presents a winning combination of these positive emotions. It is a unique resolution of the dependence-independence paradox of human behavior. People would like to be dependent yet independent, or independent yet dependent. The paradox of dependent independence or independent dependence is resolved by these factors. The five factors of the lofty model must be appreciated and absorbed together rather than each in isolation. Role modeling occurs when all the factors are in mutual reinforcement of each other. We should treat loyalty as a two-way process. While they must draw as much energy as they need from the team members' loyalty, the leaders also must earn loyalty through their thoughts, expressions, and actions. Loyalty must occur on multiple dimensions, not merely to the leader, but more importantly for the organization, its goals and values, and also to the genuine causes which the leader represents. Objectivity builds on the positive outcomes and rational analysis that arise out of education and experience. Loyalty gets stronger with objectivity. Faith develops essentially in a meritocracy that is marked by a belief in what one is capable of and what the team together is capable of. Faith makes the impossible possible. Trust is the lofty and sublime emotion that makes individuals, teams, organizations, societies, and nations stay together to achieve what they are intrinsically capable of. And finally, integrity is the core of authentic and genuine leadership. The aspiration to move from good to great for a leader and for his or her firm is fulfilled by the lofty model. Each of the five factors of the lofty model are two-way between the leader and the followers. The lofty leader recognizes this and focuses on building an organizational and cultural system that supports them. How do we integrate lofty with dependence-independence paradigm? We started this lecture explaining the concepts of dependence and independence that exist between leaders and followers as natural concomitants of human behavior. That said, there is need to express the balance of dependence, which is loyalty and faith, with independence, that is objectivity and integrity, so that trust is maximized. So you can see this equation. Out of the five factors I mentioned, loyalty, objectivity, faith, trust, and integrity, the balance of dependence and independence is caused by loyalty and faith on one hand, influencing dependence, and objectivity and integrity on the other hand, influencing independence. And if the balance is absolutely excellent, then the trust is maximized. So dependence plus independence leads to trust, and effective organization with sustainable competitive advantage is a natural result of such balanced dependent independence or independent dependence marked by trust. As can be appreciated, each of the five factors is important in its own right and has multiple subdimensions. We have to make sure that the balance of independence and independence is such that it is explicit as well as implicit in this model in action. it is as important as the overarching importance of each of the factors individually, and all the five factors being together and being important collectively. This we need to keep in mind. What is the lofty grid? It is a grid of dependent independence or independent dependence. While it is an aspirational goal, it is quite difficult to get uniform level of dependence-independence balance as expressed through the lofty model. We get there with lot of experience, intuition and wisdom. We had to get it nevertheless across hierarchy and functions. It is important to get this balance right also because organizational health is dependent on the smooth functioning of the lofty balance. So we can say that followers have low lofty level or high lofty level. Similarly, leaders may have low lofty level or high lofty level. If followers and leaders belong to the low category, the organization is most likely to fail. If the followers are having high lofty levels, but the leaders have low lofty levels, the organization will be in search of leadership that can take the organization forward. If the followers have low lofty and leaders have high lofty, organization needs transformation. And if both the followers and leaders have high lofty, it is a virtuous organization with sustainable competitive advantage. Dependence independence aspects as expressed by the lofty model is a highly relevant construct therefore for organizations. If we wish to sum up this particular part, leadership has the responsibility to appreciate the human prevarications of dependence and independence and develop a reinforced approach of dependent independence or independent dependence based on the lofty model. Dependence could be in terms of functions and people. Independence could be in terms of individuality and rationality, and dependent independence would be in terms of alignment and inclusiveness. It is a highly relevant construct which we could develop in our organizations. Thank you. With this, we come to the end of this lecture. We will meet in the forthcoming lecture.